The city of Adareth shone like a jewel beneath the morning sun, its walls glimmering with dusted gold, and its rooftops laced with ribbons of smoke from the bakeries below. The scent of incense drifted through the air, blending with the sweetness of figs and the sharp tang of olive oil. The city pulsed with life, merchants shouting prices, donkeys braying, temple bells marking the hours with a rhythmic clang that echoed through the streets. In the heart of this city stood a mansion grander than any other, the home of Elior ben Neriah, the king's most trusted counselor. His house was built of white marble and framed with tall cedar doors engraved with symbols of strength and power. It was said that when Elior passed through the market, people bowed their heads not out of love, but out of reverence mixed with fear. Elior had risen quickly in life. His wisdom and eloquence had earned him royal favor, and his success had multiplied until even nobles sought his approval. His servants dressed in fine linen, his table never lacked for fruit or wine, and his name was carried through Adareth like the sound of a trumpet. But beneath the wealth and splendor lay a quiet rot, pride, spreading slowly through his soul like poison in sweet water. There was a time when Elior prayed before every dawn, his words humble and sincere. But over the years, those prayers had turned into speeches, polished words of self-praise disguised as gratitude. He believed that his blessings were rewards for his brilliance, not gifts of grace. His wife, Hannah, saw the change but said little. She prayed quietly, often watching him from the balcony as he strode through their courtyard, surrounded by servants who obeyed his every command. One afternoon, a long line of beggars gathered outside his estate. They had come because Elior was known for his grand acts of giving, not out of compassion, but for the praise that followed. Every few weeks he would stand before the poor in the city square, handing out silver coins to the crippled, the blind, and the hungry. The scene was always the same. A trumpet would sound, and servants would pour into the square carrying baskets heavy with money. Elior would arrive in his crimson robe, his head held high, his face solemn with false humility. Crowds would bow and chant his name. He would stretch out his hand dramatically, tossing coins into the air as people scrambled to catch them. "Let no man in Adareth hunger while I live," he would declare, his voice loud enough for everyone to hear. The crowd would cheer and bless his name, and Elior would smile faintly, pretending not to enjoy it. But he did. He always did. Hidden among the crowd, Hannah often watched from a distance. Her heart ached every time she saw him turn charity into performance. When the cheers grew louder, she would lower her eyes and whisper a prayer that his heart would one day learn the quiet kind of goodness, the kind that seeks no applause. Elior's servants knew their master's ways. Once, when a sick widow came begging at his gates late at night, he ordered the guards to send her away, saying there would be another public giving soon. "She can wait for the trumpet," he said coldly. The woman left in tears, and by dawn she was found dead by the riverbank. When news reached him, Elior frowned but felt no true sorrow. Instead, he ordered a memorial to be built for her at the city's edge, a marble bench inscribed with his own name, so that people would remember his generosity more than her suffering. Adareth praised him again, and Elior's heart grew harder. The more the world applauded, the more he believed that power was proof of righteousness. Even the temple priests bowed to him when he arrived with heavy donations. Yet the prayers he offered beneath the team's golden roof were hollow, words spoken for the ears of men, not the heart of God. Then came the night of the great feast, the turning point that would unravel everything. The palace was lit with torches that shimmered like stars. Musicians played by the fountains, and dancers twirled in silk as wine flowed like rivers. Nobles toasted to Elior's brilliance and wealth, calling him the arm of Adareth. His smile was calm, his laughter smooth, but his heart was swollen with pride. As the night deepened, an old man entered, a prophet once known throughout the land for his wisdom. His robes were torn and dust-colored, his eyes pale with age, yet sharp with a strange light. He stood quietly at the edge of the feast, watching the glittering room. When he spoke, the music stopped. His words were not loud, but they cut through the air like a blade. He said that Elior's house stood tall but hollow, that the light within it would soon fade, and that his own eyes, eyes so full of pride, would one day see nothing but darkness. The crowd grew uneasy, waiting for Elior's response, but the proud man only laughed. He waved the prophet away, and the laughter of the nobles followed him out into the cold night. By dawn, the prophecy had begun. It started with Asa, Elior's only son, the soft, cheerful boy who had been the heart of their home. He woke one morning and said the world had gone dim. At first they thought it was childish imagination, but by evening he could no longer see. The finest physicians in the kingdom were summoned. They came carrying scrolls, herbs, and oils. They spoke in low voices and lit candles around his bed. But nothing changed. Day after day, Elior watched the light drain from his son's eyes. He prayed, but only as a bargaining man, offering gold, offerings, and even the promise of temples built in God's name. But heaven did not move. His son's laughter faded into silence, and his wife's prayers turned into weeping. For the first time, Elior felt powerless. His hands, once able to shape the city's fate, could not save his own child. Months passed, and Asa's body weakened until one morning, before the sun had climbed the hills, the boy's spirit left quietly, like a candle extinguished by a soft wind. The house that had once echoed with music was now silent. Servants wept, and Hannah's strength began to fade with grief. Elior, once the man who commanded kings, fell to his knees beside the bed and tore his robe in despair. But the silence of heaven remained. Hannah's sorrow consumed her. She spent her last days praying for her husband's soul, whispering that pride had stolen his peace. When she too was buried beside their child, Elior's heart broke completely. He shut himself away, refusing food or company. His estate fell into decay. Ivy crawled up the walls, fountains dried, and the peacocks that once strutted proudly across the courtyard were gone. His name, once spoken in every hall, was now a cautionary whisper. And then his sight began to fail. At first it was subtle, shadows where there should have been light, faces blurred like smoke. Then one morning, he woke and could see nothing at all. The once proud man who had looked down on beggars became one himself. Blind and broken, he left the ruins of his estate and wandered through the streets he had once ruled. The people of Adareth did not recognize him. His robes were torn, his hair gray with dust. Some pitied him, others mocked him, but no one bowed anymore. Only Ruth, the servant who had cared for his son, remained. She guided him through the alleys, gave him water, and sat with him by the roadside. Sometimes she would lead him to the riverbank where children played, and there he would listen to their laughter, his empty eyes turned toward the sound. Years passed in this quiet suffering, but as his outer world darkened, his inner sight began to clear. For the first time in his life, Elior understood the weight of his pride. He remembered the widow he had turned away, the poor he had used for show, the prophet's words he had mocked. His heart, once cold and hard, began to ache with repentance. One evening, Ruth led him to the edge of the city, to the tomb of the old prophet who had once warned him. The wind rustled through the olive trees as Elior knelt beside the grave. He did not ask for sight, nor for restored wealth. He only asked for forgiveness and peace. It came quietly, not as a voice, not as a miracle, but as a stillness that filled his heart like dawn breaking after a long night. From that day on, Elior became a humble teacher. He would sit by the riverside, his blind eyes turned toward the sun, and children would gather around him to listen. He told them stories of pride and mercy, of wealth and loss, of how the heart sees more clearly than the eyes. The people who once mocked him began to come again, not to bow before him, but to sit and listen. They called him the blind man of Adareth, not knowing he had once been their city's most powerful lord. He died quietly one morning, as the river shimmered with light. His face was calm, his hands folded over his chest, as though he had finally seen what he had been searching for all his life. When the people buried him beside his wife and son, they carved into the stone not his titles, not his wealth, but the simple words. When the light faded, his soul began to see. And from that time onward, the people of Adareth told his story to their children, not as a tale of loss, but as a reminder that sometimes, only in darkness does the true light appear. Thank you for listening to this story. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more inspiring stories like this one. Until next time, may your light never fade.